Hello, my name's Tabitha. I have a big problem with Netflix's Bird Box. You might be wondering why I'm choosing to make a video on a movie that came out in January and June. Well, I wrote this whole scripted video when I first saw this piece of garbage, and in a Red Bull fueled rage, I noted down over 5 pages of notes and this video.
It was therapeutic for me. I don't regret it.
The main point of contention I have with Bird Box is the amount of praise it received. I mean, it was all over the Netflix homepage. You couldn't open Twitter without seeing a Bird Box meme. Even Shane Dawson decided to jump in and make a video about it. Not quite sure why. And how the fuck does this movie have a near 7 out of 10 on IMDb and a solid 3 out of 5 on Letterboxd? Follow me, by the way, cheeky plug. So let's just get into it. I've been talking shit long enough. So the film opens, and this is such a nitpick, but come on. Sandra Bullock really looks this pretty in a society 5 years after the apocalypse. How'd she keep her plastic surgery routine so consistent all this time? Whatever. So we see her running at the start, which sets up a whole new problem for me. If the monsters can only make you kill yourself if you see them, the fuck is she running from? And she does this throughout the movie. Stay tuned for the most ridiculous example of this near the end. Making her sprint around, even though it's inherently dangerous and impractical, just seems like a cheap ass way of trying to build suspense, and no, it does not work for me. You're going to be much more exposed on the river. Why are you making it more dangerous for yourself by rushing around on land? We flash forward to 5 years later, which is a personal problem of mine. I'm not a fan of movies that jump around in and out of flashbacks like that, but I guess that's my fucking problem, I don't know. Sandra Bullock turns on the news where we learn that
first recorded in Romania, there's now an alarming spread of incidents into Europe and Siberia. Estimated death toll is in the tens of thousands.
Bit of an issue that neither of them react like humans. Sandra Bullock just stands there like she's trying to figure out what she wants to eat the whole time. A lot of the dialogue in this scene is kind of weird and shoehorned to pack in as much character and foreshadowing as possible. First, Sandra Bullock says she doesn't like talking to her mum and she doesn't like babies, establishing herself as a cool lone wolf. Later, there's some really subtle foreshadowing.
I see a whole bunch of people sitting together, but they all feel incredibly lonely.
This movie's just so fucking smart, man. I guess I just don't get it, I don't know. There's pretty nice chemistry with Sarah Paulson in this scene, at least, though. So earlier we learned that Sandra Bullock is pregnant, and we move forward to her doctor's appointment with this incredibly unimportant doctor character. I really can't say much about the scene other than it continues to set up Sandra Bullock as being detached from her future child. They really love reminding us that Sandra Bullock doesn't want or like kids. That'll be important later. So Sandra Bullock chuns.
Is it chunky?
What the fuck? I was kind of skeptical about this first scene because morning sickness is so rare after the first trimester, and there is no purpose for this scene. They literally just added it for some kind of weird gross out humor, I guess. It doesn't add to the plot or story or their characters. So yes, it's the first action scene. Explosions! And explosions! And why are there so many explosions? Sandra Bullock's car flips, which is meant to be top 10 scary moments, I guess, but all I can think about is how much she looks like that one girl puppet from Team America World Police. So Sarah Paulson fucking dies. Goodbye, SP. You were too good for this piece of shit movie anyway. Again, Sandra Bullock seems to just have zero human reaction to her sister's death. It's really bizarre. She just says nothing and ambles around until she falls over. At first I thought this would be a miscarriage thing, considering she falls right on her baby bump, but I guess I've been watching too many Saw movies. She falls over in front of a house, and the woman who lives there runs to try and save her, but oh no, she sees the creature and kills herself. But why does she start talking to her mother? We find out her mother is dead, so I guess the monsters have a way of mimicking dead loved ones, but why didn't Sarah Paulson have a similar reaction? What, she's like 30 years old and has never lost a loved one. So Sandra Bullock manages to get inside the house after this bitch wanders into a fucking burning car, which explodes for some reason. Let me know if that's possible, because I'm no forensic expert, but it just seemed overly dramatic and pointless to me. In the house is John Malkovich, nice, respectable. Lil Rel Howery, he was in Get Out, that was a good movie. BD Wong, solid, and what the fuck is MGK doing here? I know YMS said something similar, but he plays almost the exact same character he plays in Nerve. And is that fucking Alita Battle Angel? Who cast this movie?
We are so fucking fucked.
Yep. pretty much. So this character somehow knows everything, which is such a lazy way of explaining what's happening. Ever heard of show don't tell? Whatever. This movie loves over-explaining things.
You got world religion and mythology that's full of mentions of demons or spirit creatures. People who's actually seen these creatures almost always describe the encounter as with the entity that takes on the form of your worst fear, your deepest sadness, or your greatest loss.
That sounds like bullshit to me, man. That's religious talk.
It's not bullshit, okay? It's real talk, it's facts. They come in all different forms, right? You got the Akamana, you got the Varios Devas from ancient Zoroastrian land. You got the Surgot from ancient Christian occult beliefs that made pregnant women encounter their unborn children as other creatures such as lobsters or spiders.
You got the Hula Jing from China. You got the Puka from Celtic mythology. All different names, but the same thing. And what's that? The end of us.
We're introduced to Tom, and him and Sandra Bullock have really odd chemistry from the get-go. His character seems oddly interested in Sandra Bullock from the very start. Sandra Bullock tells him about her sister's death, claiming that she looked really, really sad, and
Does not get sad.
what the fuck are you talking about? She never gets sad? Okay. At least she's finally reacting to the situation like a normal person, I guess. So we switch back to the present, and it's so frustrating to me personally when movies do this at all. But the fact that it does this when one timeline is so much more interesting than the other is a big fat kick in the balls for me. They're traveling along the river, whatever, the sequence is fine. A big problem I have with this movie is that the good sequences are just that, fine. And the bad sequences are frustrating and tone deaf with terrible pacing. We're back at the house, and in comes the worst character of the whole fucking movie. There's some kind of weird tone deaf humor when Olympia enters.
So are you pregnant?
So later on, this group of geniuses try to find out whether they can keep an eye on the creatures through their home security system. This sequence is so unnecessary. If someone had just stayed in the room with him, he'd be fine. Okay, editing me here. I forgot to say it might even have been cool if someone had been in the room to stop Greg. It would have been interesting and disturbing to see the kind of struggle that he goes through fighting against his body trying to kill himself. It would also be cool to see what kind of limitations there are. If he was tied to a chair, how would he do it? These are the kinds of questions that the movie sort of just forgets about. There's also this kind of weird shoehorn mention that Greg is gay. Why? We know nothing about his character, we don't care about him. This attempt at character development right before his death just feels lazy and meaningless. So later we see everyone going about their lives. How the fuck are you taking prenatal vitamins when there's no food in the house? This house belonged to two gay guys, right? What? We see John Malkovich chilling with a gun, which kinda indicates he's gonna use it to kill himself, and it will be incorporated into the story later. Let's see if that happens. Olympia decides that since her and Sandra Bullock are both pregnant, they're besties, I guess. I'm not even gonna get into the issues I have with that one. I guess it just further demonstrates Sandra Bullock's lone wolfness. There's another attempt at a scary scene on the river. Sandra Bullock gets attacked by a guy who tells her it's safe to take her blindfold off, which sets us up for the epic twist later in the movie. But Sandra Bullock, wearing a blindfold, pulls out a gun and starts shooting.
I walk around like that, finger on the trigger. Want some smoke, chopper eat his liver. I came with the
Stop shooting if you can't see. You're just alerting him more to your location. But somehow she has a fucking machete and stabs him to death, so it's okay, I guess. We find out that there's no more food in the house and they have to do a food run. Sandra Bullock offers to go but gets shut down immediately.
You're pregnant.
You're pregnant. I guess she's fucking going anyway. We get this car scene, which would be so cool if we could see more shots outside of the car. I guess they couldn't be bothered to stretch the budget for practicals. Who knows? All we get are these boring as fuck, static as fuck shots of each character's reaction. And how did the creatures move the car later in the scene? If they can do that, surely they can just throw people around or remove their blindfolds. This movie creates rules but has no consistency, so the result is a nonsensical clusterfuck. At least there's some epic humor at the end though.
You have arrived.
Huh. My first thought, why don't they just live in the supermarket? And John Malkovich seems to have the same idea as me, if with some weirdly timed humor.
Making the end of the world great again! Yeah!
Another big issue I have with the movie is that they try to paint John Malkovich's character as this shitty Trump supporter guy, but he's the only rational person with actual survival instincts here. If the group had followed what he said from the beginning, nothing bad would have happened to them. But we have to hate him because he's a Trump supporter? Why did this happen? There's also some kind of weird and poorly written sexual tension here.
Could have been your babysitter.
I'm a hot babysitter.
Gross. So now they hear someone begging to be let in, and it turns out Charlie knows him.
Works here at the supermarket with me. Works in the seafood department. He's been to prison and he's a bit crazy, but he's always nice to me.
What the fuck? Charlie fucking dies, but that's fine. Aside from being a decent actor, he didn't contribute anything worth noting to this piece of garbage movie. We're back on the river, and here comes my least favourite scene in the movie. Sandra Bullock goes scavenging and leaves the kids in the boat. The girl, and her name is Girl, starts talking, and holy fuck, she's a terrible actor.
Something is wrong with Molly.
I get that child actors are never going to be that good and can't be directed in the same way as older people, but Jesus Christ, I can barely understand what this child is saying. At first, I and my boyfriend, who I watched this with, thought that she got Sandra Bullock's character's name wrong and she was saying Mary instead of Mallory, but nope, she's just got terrible enunciation.
Mallory? Mallory?
Anyway, the girl follows her, I guess. She starts getting dragged around by what we're meant to assume is a creature, but is actually Sandra Bullock. And the kid doesn't react at all. All the shaky cameras and dramatic music in the world can't hide the fact that this kid literally looks like she's asleep when she's being forcefully dragged around by an unknown entity. So now it's time for the epic twist. But first, for a great bit of dialogue.
Wait.
Best bit of dialogue in the whole movie, in my opinion. This fucking idiot lets in some random, incredibly shifty looking guy who tells the story of a group of mentally ill people pursuing him and trying to force his eyes open to look at the creatures. I have to say, I hate the fact that they describe this story that could be so interesting, but we never get to see it. I get that it's a lie or whatever, but fuck me, that would be a much better storyline or premise for this movie than a bunch of idiots sitting around in this house. John Malkovich, being the only reasonable person, protests against letting some random crackhead into the house, and they knock him out and trap him in the garage. Sandra Bullock's water breaks. Hang on, how long's he been trapped in there? How do they still have water? How much fucking time has passed? The pacing is absolutely bizarre. The two pregnant people give birth at the same time, and big surprise, Girl is Olympia's kid. Wow, very epic character development. We find out that Tom Hollander is one of the mentally ill people. Don't know if this is meant to be a plot twist or what, but it's not surprising at all. His character's clearly from Sketchville, USA, and it was pretty obvious, at least to me, that he was gonna fuck them over. Tom Hollander decides to go on a killing spree, and Douglas, as the only character with character, meets a really unsatisfying end. Olympia's death is funny as fuck, but at least she fucking dies, and good riddance. Tom Hollander starts tweaking, and this scene is really funny to me. He tries to get the babies to open their eyes and look, and like, what? They can't even open their eyes yet, they've just been born. How's a baby gonna get up and kill itself? This shitty excuse for shock factor makes no sense and I hate it.
Give me the kids. Give me the children or I'll take them.
Also, the gore effects are just so bad for a Netflix original. When you compare them to Gerard's Game or even The Perfection, which I'm not the biggest fan of, these effects are so shitty. There's this weird bit where Tom Hollander gets shot and barely reacts, like, I guess mentally ill people are just zombies now? This brings me to a problem that I have with horror movies like this in general. Are we really still on the wave of demonizing mentally ill people in 2019? It reminds me of how I felt when I saw The Green Inferno, in which the entire scare is a non-Western culture. That shit sucks, and call me an SJW, but I find it really inappropriate to demonize people because they're not normal in our society. So we flash forward to this midpoint in the timeline where we learn that Tom has just become the dad. I mean, okay, not quite sure how they survived for 5 years with 2 babies, but whatever. We learn that there's a compound safe from the creatures, and after Tom dies in a pretty irrelevant scene, we learn that that's where they're traveling to. However, plot twist time. We find out that along the journey there's a dangerous point with rapids, and one of the 3 will have to look at the outside world to navigate and, you know, make sure they don't all get smashed to bits. Sandra Bullock makes the worst possible decision, saying none of them will look. Okay, so risk all your lives instead of just one? That totally makes sense. In the interest of protecting her children, she just risks all of their lives. Why not just walk? After they become shipwrecked because of her terrible decision making, they just walk from that point, and that's not much closer to the compound than where they were originally. And no way those kids would have survived the rapids. When would they have even learned to swim? Whatever though, let's not think about common sense because it's time for Sandra Bullock's arc. They get to this foresty bit, and remember how I mentioned the most ridiculous, unnecessary running bit at the start of this video? It's right here. Sandra Bullock runs around like a fucking idiot from monsters that can just pass right by you as long as you don't look at them. Inevitably falls because she's blindfolded and gets separated from boy and girl, who we get some more great acting from. So now there's this weird sudden arc where she used to not like children and now she does like them? What? That's not an arc. I wish girl would have fucking died in this scene, but this movie doesn't have the balls for child death, and I don't know why I expected any more from it. Again, Sandra Bullock starts running and it makes no sense. She falls over running again. It's almost as if running whilst blindfolded isn't a good idea. So the big twist at the end is that the compound is a school for the blind. Why is it like the Garden of Eden though? Is that meant to be symbolism? How are the plants growing? Are animals not affected? This conclusion brings up so many more questions for me. The reveal that the doctor from the very start of the movie is in the compound is completely pointless, since when do we care about her character? The twist that blind people are safe is literally just common sense. This reveal sucks. In my final original notes for this video, I wrote, fucking terrible pacing and dialogue. Sandra Bullock has no arc. Stupid. 2 out of 10. I did also think about solutions for this whole problem and came to the conclusion that in 5 years, surely some government could have come up with government issued walking sticks or shields for your eyes. I don't understand why the only hope for the human race is negligible enough to fit in a single school for the blind. So much for watching this video. I'm aware that it's not quite a trending topic anymore, but I wanted to get my 2 cents in because I have to scream my opinions to everyone possible or I will die. Thank you so much for coming on this journey with me, and follow my social medias, smash that fucking like button. I'm trying to get 4 million followers by the end of the month, so please help me out with that. I'll see you soon.